On day one, as 47th President of the United States, Donald Trump signed more than 40 executive orders, including a 75-day reprieve for TikTok's Chinese owners and the U.S. withdrawal from the WHO. The president also said he would slap 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. But when asked about China, he said tariffs were already in place from his and Joe Biden's terms. The next day, he changed his mind. Take a look.
About that too, we're talking about a tariff of 10% on China based on the fact that they're sending fentanyl to Mexico and Canada.
What does this say about Trump's China policy, and what impact will this have on Taiwan, the Philippines and the East and South China Seas? Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Meet Kavat. Joining us today are Renato Cruz de Castro, Distinguished Professor at the Department of International Studies at Salle University in the Philippines, Kuo Yu-jen, National Sun Yat-sen University Institute of China and Asia-Pacific Studies Professor and Director, and Alex Tan, University of Canterbury, New Zealand, Professor of Political Science and International Relations and National Chengchi University Chair, Professor of Political Science. Very warm welcome to all of you on the show today. But first, some indicators from Trump's inauguration speech. In it, he covered everything from regaining America's position in the world to tariffs and the Panama Canal. From this moment on, America's decline is over, he said. Take a look.
The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens. The Panama Canal, which has foolishly been given to the country of Panama after the United States. We have been treated very badly from this foolish gift that should have never been made, and Panama's promise to us has been broken. Above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back.
Professor Cruz, Renato, let me start with you. So what do you think was going through the mind of China's envoy, Han Zheng, the vice president, as he was listening, sitting there to this speech?
Well, basically realizing that, as mentioned even earlier during the campaign, China will be the focal point of the Trump administration foreign policy. It's been very consistent in terms of tariff, in terms of Panama, and even Canada, Greenland, and even Canada, to prevent Canada and Greenland, of course, becoming haven for Chinese investment. Again, a continuation of what he started in 2017, the strategic competition with China, which of course was continued by the Biden administration, and probably, this is my bet, will be continued by the Trump administration.
And Professor Kuo, what did you make of, his statement that America's decline is over? What message, or how was that received by China?
I believe, especially during the campaign, all these public speech or interviews that Trump made quite clear in terms of economic, military or strategic interests of the United States being declining for decades. Yeah, and he was trying to make it right during his first term. But it is because of, again, it was 1 week before the election at the New York Al Smith Foundation's dinner. He emphasized that because of Chinese virus, that he couldn't get reelected. So I think at his inaugural speech, he made it quite clear he will take it back in terms of econ and trade, industrial, technological, and also strategic interests of the United States.
And Alex, Professor Kuo mentioned there the first term, Trump's first term. The sort of a very grand vision that we heard in this speech, retaking Americans' position, him being the savior. How much of that do you think he was actually able to achieve in his first term in terms of Asia itself, Asia-Pacific, Indo-Pacific?
I think as far as Asia, the 2017 first Trump 1.0 actually set the tone for what happened during the Biden administration and what will be doubled down again in his Trump 2.0. So I don't see a discontinuation of that. There could be some slight changes here and there, but the focus is still on China because it's not going away. That strategic competition has not necessarily changed.
I guess my question was, you don't think he's over-promising, that you think it is very realistic to achieve these goals?
Yeah, I think it is, because it feels like, if you listen to what he's saying, it almost feels like Trump 1.0 was short-circuited. He didn't have time to finish what he wanted to do. And this time around, he has all the chips on his side. He has the House of Congress, both houses of Congress, majority. The Republican Party is no longer, the moderate Republicans. It's essentially taken over by the MAGA movement. I think he has much more chips to play with, to essentially implement what he thinks of his idea for how to make America great again.
And tariffs being one of those tools, Renata. So let's get down to the 60% of tariffs on China that was promised during the campaign. As we said in the opening, this appeared to be reduced to 0, and then on Tuesday, on the second day, up to 10% effective on February 1st. Why is that?
Probably for Canada and Mexico, you have issues related to immigration. So basically, again, putting Canada and Mexico on a defensive. People would generally say Trump would like to make a deal. Yeah, he likes to make a deal, but always from the position of power. So he'll basically dictate to you the terms, call the shots, because primarily he wants a deal. So.
And on that basis of the deal, so the threat of 60%, Professor Yu, that he obviously realizes that this gives him leverage, maybe over the Chinese, in terms of, he's talked about TikTok. The US should be entitled to half, 50% ownership of this app.
Yes. I think the major difference between Trump 1.0 and 2.0 is obviously we could see Trump think much deeper, and the manner is much prudent in terms of dealing with China. Why I'm saying this is because if you look at his first term, the punitive tariff against China was universal. But I bet we will see from now on, Trump will carry out precision strike on all these items that he mentioned during the campaign, including EV, including automobile, including iron and steel from China, and shipbuilding.
And Professor Kuo, just staying on you, that first day, whilst he was signing executive orders, Trump was asked by a journalist, why did he change his mind about TikTok? Why is he considering, allowing the app to continue within the US? And he said, well, then I tried it, and I realized that it's just kids that are using it. So I wanted to know from your perspective why TikTok is still a big worry for a country like Taiwan if it's being used by kids.
I think it's been flipped over quite many times regarding Trump's attitude on TikTok. And the final decision for 75 days with 50% buyout from the American side, that was prevailed actually like a week before his inauguration. And I think the major consideration is Trump is trying to ride on the advantage that TikTok brought about to the administration, and allowing the American ownership for more than 50%. So it could secure the availability of TikTok applying to the U.S. society.
Right. Yeah. But Alex, how about those national security concerns? Why are kids important to China?
I think there are two different things at play here. If you think of certainly if we think of TikTok and its usage in the American setting, a lot of users, young users monetizing it. Trump certainly felt that in this particular last election, TikTok helped in his campaign. Now, with regards to your question, Ian, about Taiwan, why is it that in Taiwan we have to be much more concerned? There's a difference here. We are at the front line. We are the front line here, and China is our existential threat. The reality is that an app, a social app that is fully owned by a Chinese company with servers in China, should always present as a national security threat
And whilst it might not be an acute, immediate threat now because they're kids, these kids will always grow up, Renato.
And they might join the armed forces or government service,
indeed,
and a foreign service. You never know.
Indeed.
Exactly, of Taiwan, and they decide that they want to unify with China eventually down the line. Renato, can I ask you, so one Chinese commentator told Al Jazeera that he said that Trump actually realized that tariffs, 60% tariffs on China would only affect and only hurt the US and not China. And so actually, Trump was looking for an off-ramp. That's why he hasn't already announced that he will impose a 60%. It's not actually leverage. It's because he wants to, over the course of negotiations with China, to then be able to say, oh, well, we managed to come perhaps to a trade deal, so now I do not need to put those high tariffs on China. What's your view about that?
I'm probably still consulting the bureaucracy, government, trade, State Department, National Security Council. But it's out there. He basically announced it. And he would have to take into account the fact that he is accountable to his base. He mentioned it to, people who actively supported him, who have this sense, that American decline has something to do with China's economic emergence.
Right. And Professor Kuo, how willing are both sides, you think, to strike this big deal, China and the US? I mean, would China be willing to strengthen the UN, to buy more US exports, when all it wants to do is to export more Chinese goods?
At Chinese side, they've been actually before Trump's inauguration already tried to increase their purchase of American products before Trump's inauguration, but
it failed, didn't it?
They failed, and I doubt today's China is quite different to China at 2018. Xi Jinping doesn't have too much chips to negotiate or indirect strategy against Trump's pressure. I do not see any room for Xi Jinping to maneuver from Trump's pressure, especially on trade deal.
Alex, do you agree with that? Xi Jinping is in a weaker position compared to 2017, first Trump term, because of its economy crisis, property crisis, weak demand, youth unemployment, etc. But it's also got a much stronger position in terms of its relationship with Russia. So this strategic relationship, also it's buying lots of oil from Iran, it's getting closer to Iran, and there's the strength, the growing strength of the global South for China.
Yeah, I think if we think of whether they want to come to a trade deal, I think the answer is yes. The question is, can they get there, right? There's two varying, it's a bit diverging with regards to their interests. The United States wants something, China wants something. China's economic position, as Yu-jen has mentioned today, and you mentioned as well, is not 2017, Their lockdown that has been too long really affected their state of the economy. The unemployment has been very high. They have overproduction, and what they really need is to increase domestic demand. But nobody seems to be buying anything because of the fear of an economic future that is uncertain, right? So it is difficult.
Okay. Now, days before his inauguration on Friday, January 17th, Trump had a, quote, very good phone call with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, first since 2017. Here's Trump on Truth Social. It is my expectation that we will solve many problems together and starting immediately. We discuss balancing trade, fentanyl, TikTok, and many other subjects. President Xi and I will do everything possible to make the world more peaceful and safe. Now, Chinese Foreign Ministry statement about this call said Xi noted both hope for a good start of the China-US relationship during the new US presidency. President Xi expressed his readiness to secure greater progress in China-US relations from a new starting point. Renato, so how hopeful can this new start be?
Well, that's an intention, but whether that will be accomplished is another matter. And I will quote Karl Marx, "Man make history, but they don't make it the way they want to." So you have certain structures that would, of course, constrain any efforts for a good relation. But, we're watching. But, of course, one very factor that would prevent a dramatic improvement of U.S.-China bilateral relation is the great distrust of, basically Americans. Congress is basically unanimous in terms of coming out with laws that are, of course, detrimental to China's security interests regarding, of course, even interaction with Taiwan, building up the military capability. Then, of course, also you have to take into account not only the American public, but, of course, also in terms of looking at the U.S. military, the U.S. intelligence community that has basically considered China as what the term they use is either pure competitor or the creeping threat. You know, in all documents released by the Department of National Defense, the Pentagon, even an announcement by Indo-PACOM and service commanders of the United States Armed Services, they look at basically China as the clear and present danger.
Right, yeah, it reminds me of what the Europeans say, that Russia is a storm, but China is climate change. Professor Kuo, let's look at sort of the step back. Let's compare the Biden administration's approach with Republicans' approach. So Biden has been criticized for, maintaining communication with Xi Jinping, with the CCP, at the expense of strongly challenging China. That is what they would call, intense diplomacy, is what Biden would call. But what the Democrats counter their criticism of the Republicans is that they want to take down China and the CCP, as opposed to more pragmatically learning to live with or manage China. So from what we see now, what path do you expect Trump will take?
I believe it's more precisely to say not taking down China, but taking down Xi administration. It is much easier to dismantle Xi administration than dismantling China. And I want to get back to what you just mentioned, the last question. When you hear that Trump say we should fix the problem together and immediately, you should feel scared. That's meaning
Xi Jinping should be scared.
Exactly. That's unilaterally Trump is giving pressure on Xi Jinping.
Right.
That we do have problems, and I need you to work with me to fix the problems together and immediately.
Okay.
Yeah,
so there's an implicit threat that if that does not happen, that perhaps
exactly. So
60% tariffs will come down.
Take Special Envoy, for example. Remember, Trump, first of all, inviting Xi Jinping to attend his inauguration ceremony. That was scary for Xi Jinping. If you look at the president of Seoul Bank, to increase their investment to the States, and when Trump was there, Trump's asking to President Song was to double investment. So what if Xi Jinping really attend the ceremony and Trump asked something in the public? Xi Jinping couldn't do any response to that. Right. It's going to be very weird and awkward. So
how do you think Xi Jinping is taking this? Trump has said that he wants to visit Beijing in his first 100 days.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. So China make it very wrong sending Vice President Han Zheng as a special envoy to attend the ceremony.
That's interesting. Why?
Yeah, because the US side really wants is Cai Qi, the first secretary, who could really represent Xi Jinping.
Yeah, so he's a member of the Politburo Standing Committee, very close to Xi.
And the closest person to Xi Jinping.
Right.
And China being overconfident, believing this is a very good atmosphere, just sending Vice President Han Zheng to the ceremony, and later on talking with Vance. It's meaningless. Yeah. So China had actually a very bad starting from the ceremony.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Taiwan President Lai Ching-te congratulated Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance on their taking office. He wrote, "Taiwan looks forward to working with your administration to promote enduring freedom, peace, prosperity around the world. We wish you great success in the years ahead," Lai said on X. And in addition, Taiwan sent a large bipartisan delegation to the inauguration led by Legislative Yuan Speaker Han Kuo-yu of the opposition Kuomintang Party. In the Chinese statement about the Trump-Xi phone call, 2 sentences were devoted to Taiwan, repeating that the country is a core interest and a major concern. No reference was made to Taiwan by either Trump or his team in relation to the call. Alex, let me ask you, so what would Trump or this possible new start, I guess we haven't really defined what that new start might be, Do you consider it a blow that the defense budget, as well as many other budgets, but particularly for Trump, Taiwan's defense budget has been cut? This is, by the KMT majority in the legislature.
Yeah, it's not a good sign. It's not a good sign. We certainly want to show a first move, right? I mean, because Trump has already stated it, that he wants the allies to put up a little bit more for its own defense. The least that we can do is at least put something up and buy more, certainly increase our own defense spending. Plus, we do really need that upgrade of our equipment anyway. Yes, but whatever good signals we can send towards Washington, D.C., I think we should.
Right. And Renato, turning to the Philippines, Philippines was represented by its ambassador to the U.S., Jose Manuel Romualdez, and as well as 4 legislators. What do you think the New START means to the Philippines?
Well, for our case, based on our experience during the first 4 years, Trump was not a problem. Trump saved the Philippine-U.S. alliance during his term by engaging former President Rodrigo Duterte. And of course, after he visited Vietnam in 2017, he went to Manila and said, this is a very important piece of real estate. So, I've talked with a lot of government officials, even his phone call. When President Bongbong Marcos called him, the conversation was very cordial, and Trump even sent his regards to Imelda Marcos. So, and I've also talked with Ambassador Romualdez when I was there in September, and he has a very positive outlook in terms of our relationship with the United States.
So what do you see happening in the South China Sea then? How will Trump, manage, deter China's aggression in a way that's different to how Biden did it?
Well, I don't think he'll give so much attention to the South China Sea issue in contrast to President Joe Biden. But remember the statement during his confirmation hearing of, he's now the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who basically said, and he, interestingly, Marco Rubio never mentioned ASEAN. Instead, he mentioned 2 countries, the Philippines and Taiwan.
Okay. Well, speaking about Marco Rubio, he sees China as the US's biggest threat. He was confirmed as US Secretary of State just hours after Trump was sworn in as president. On his first full day, he joined foreign ministers of the Quad grouping, which includes Japan, India, and Australia, along with the US, to uphold peace and stability in the region and oppose changing the status quo by force or coercion. Earlier in his confirmation hearings, Rubio has emphasized that China is the most powerful and dangerous nation the US has ever faced. He said the Trump administration will continue its policy of supporting Taiwan and the Philippines and countering China, including enhancing Taiwan's defensive capabilities. He added that China must understand that the cost of invading Taiwan is high. On the subject of China competition, Rubio said, if we stay on the road we're on right now, in less than 10 years, virtually everything that matters to us in life will depend on whether China will allow us to have it or not. Meanwhile, China Vice President Han Zheng used his visit to the US to meet with Elon Musk and other American business leaders, calling on them to promote US-China ties. 3 of America's top business leaders, you can see here, attended Trump's inauguration. They were Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, and Tesla CEO Elon Musk. Professor Kuo, how will Trump balance his China hawks, for example, Marco Rubio, on the one hand, with the business community, and in particular, I'm talking about Elon Musk?
I want to start from the previous question that lots of people tend to forget that make a freedom of navigation operation at regular basis was actually President Trump, not anyone else. And second of all, that was President Trump at June and November 2019 to make a so-called Indo-Pacific strategy official to the U.S. Government policy. That's number 2. And number 3, I believe Elon Musk's policy influence at the Trump administration will be time limited. In terms of, I believe Elon Musk is looking to phase out from Chinese market at orderly manner. Right now, at Elon Musk's influence at the Trump administration, Chinese government doesn't dare to think to damage Elon Musk's business interests at China. So But if you look at the market share of Tesla at China, it's been declining quite fast. So I believe the support from Elon Musk to Trump's campaign, the major intention is to phase out from China in orderly manner. And second of all, Elon Musk is pretty much in control of NASA. And that was another big thing for Elon Musk. When Trump at the inaugural speech talking about sending astronauts to Mars, Elon Musk was very, very excited. Yeah, so that's his number two intention in supporting Trump's campaign and supporting Trump administration.
Okay.
But all of these, you could already see the roof. You could already see the time limited between the cooperation and friendship between Elon Musk and President Trump.
Right. What's your view on that? How is the hawks and the doves going to be balanced?
I think Trump will be playing both sides and deciding on what's best based on the arguments of both sides. Because if we, from the foreign policy decision-making theory literature, the president is still where the buck stops. So
a highly nuanced policy or a chaotic policy?
I think he will be, he knows it was, Trump 1.0 was chaotic. Trump 2.0 will be less chaotic. He has a lot of people who are similar, like-minded, but he will be that person who will say, the buck stops here, I make the decision.
Yes.
On that note, we'll have to end. Thank you so much, Renato.
Thank you very much.
Castro,
Thank you very much.
Kuo Yu-jen and Alex Tan for joining Taiwan Talks today. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching the show today. Stay safe and see you next time.